Hey guys, welcome into the Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack. He is Frank. Frank, season's over. That was fast. That feels weird, doesn't it? That there's, I mean, you get the USFL ads going through the Super Bowl, and I got to be honest with you, Frank. I could not care less.
Oh really? Oh dude, I'm not even just fucking around. I'm really excited for the USFL. There's something about the game of football that isn't like other sports. I can watch lower level football and be just as entertained as the NFL. I don't know what it is.
But
I
you don't
don't feel
watch
this.
college football, right?
No, that college is a little bit different. It's because there's too many teams. If it was like 32 college teams, I would absolutely. You start getting into like fucking, here goes the number one ranked Florida Gators versus North Carolina State A&M University. I'm like, okay, now you lost me. But you give me just 15, 20, 30 teams. I'm all in. I'm excited about it.
Okay. All right. I cannot agree with you on that, but yeah, I mean, it's weird that the season is over, but like you and I were talking about in the last episode of the podcast, I mean, I couldn't be more excited for the season to be over because now we can get to the real shit. We can talk about our team again. We haven't been able to talk about our team in about what, a month now, like literally about the actual team itself, and I'm just excited. There's a couple of news things that we wanted to get to. First, real quick, I just wanted to reel off the coaches that were hired after the Super Bowl, Frank, and then Frank and I will talk a little Bears news as well, and then we'll kind of give our thoughts on the Super Bowl, and then an owner decided to speak his mouth about the Bears, and it's just absolutely incredible. So we'll get to that towards the end of the podcast. So stick around for that. But first, Arizona Cardinals hired Jonathan Gannon, and the Colts hired the offensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles, Steichen. So, Frank, the Eagles, man, losing two of their coordinators right after a Super Bowl loss. That's got to hurt, right?
You know what, Jackie? I used to think that like, oh man, there goes what they have built, but I truly do, and that, like, I had sort of finality with that thought because I started having these thoughts a couple of years ago, where as soon as everyone wanted the next Sean McVay. Do you remember that? Like, hot young coordinator, here he goes, here, here's the next Sean McVay. I legitimately do think when people are getting hired, like when Nick Sirianni was interviewing, they were asking, when you win a Super Bowl with us, what is your plan when your OC gets hired? Like, I legitimately, and I that's a random hypothetical, but I'm just saying, like, I think teams and coaches and GMs are preparing for this to happen, to a point where I don't think it's going to hurt teams nearly as much. As a matter of fact, I think, like, it only helps the total NFL product that, like, successful organizations are churning out more coaches that have similar philosophies, and you're going to see, continued parity throughout the league. Them specifically, we will see, but I know people, for whatever reason, all of a sudden turned on Nick Sirianni. I fucking love that guy. I think he's great for that city. I think he's great for that team. I think, he's prepared for this, and I don't see them skipping a beat because they have Jalen fucking Hurts, and they have a lot of weapons, and they have a little work to do in the secondary, but they know how to build in the trenches. So I don't forecast that being any sort of short-term issue for them.
There was kind of a weird little statistic or a little factoid going out that I saw, and it was basically all 5 coaches hired in this coaching cycle were at some point part of the Philadelphia Eagles, where Frank Reich was an OC there, obviously Shane Steichen, OC, Jonathan Gannon, DC, D'Amico Ryans played for them, and then Sean Payton was like their quarterbacks coach in like the 90s. So just kind of funny. Frank, I don't, we don't normally touch on this stuff all that often, and I'm not necessarily like super, I guess I can't really speak to it. So I'm curious your thoughts. One out of the 5 coaches that were hired to be a head coach this year was black. The rest were white. I mean, do you feel like again, there's really anything the NFL can do to sort of promote that type of stuff. I know, a lot of there was a lot of minority coaches in the runnings for a lot of jobs. That seems to be the case almost every single year. Eric Bieniemy again didn't get a head coaching job, but I'm just not sure at this point what to really say about it, other than the fact that it just seems to sort of continue to be the common theme.
Well, as a black man myself, Jack. No, so
You're not Italian. Just give me your Italian perspective, Frankie.
Oh, Jesus. If I had Italian in my blood, it'd be a 50-50 response here, Jack. No, but in all seriousness, I think the head coaching thing is a thing. We've seen what seems like more white coaches get hired than black coaches on a yearly basis. I don't know quite. Outside of just saying like, hey, these owners are racist and they're old white guys, we get there can be that component to this. But what I'm saying is beyond that, we don't know exactly why certain black or Latino black coaches aren't being hired. The one thing that I do see around the league, though, where I and maybe this is me just feeling optimistic today, is there's a lot more minority coordinators in today's league than there were when we were younger. And to me, while it may be frustrating to some in the now that like, hey, only one of the 5 openings has been black or a minority, I think that is going to, that trend will continue to change now that there's more equity within the coaching tree, if that makes sense. So what I don't want to do is isolate it year by year and like put it so under a microscope, but I want to be able to look in like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and like, we don't even think about that anymore. Cause like the best guys are getting the job. The numbers look right. It feels right. And we're there. The one name that I do want to touch on though, I don't know how race related it is with Eric Bieniemy. Cause this is like the 4th time he's been year wise. And I know there's rumors that he doesn't interview well, and I don't know what it could possibly be. But I think the biggest thing in the room is I don't think anyone knows what he brings to the Chiefs. Because and I say that because look, the reason that Matt Nagy got hired was for a false reason. And like, I don't think Bieniemy's in any different of a situation than Matt Nagy was. Like, what I want for Bieniemy is to go be an OC and call plays for a year or two elsewhere to show that you know what you're doing. But like, Andy Reid is damn near too good at his job. Like, you know,
and there were reports that Eric Bieniemy was in talks to be to go to the Washington Commanders to be their offensive coordinator. Obviously, Ron Rivera is a defensive guy, so it would basically be his show. So that kind of matches up with what you're talking about. That'd be a great opportunity to go there. The thing that's strangest to me, Frank, and again, I don't know if Matt Nagy is necessarily why Eric Bieniemy isn't getting a chance. I can't argue if that was the reason. But like Andy Reid, like almost every time in the playoffs, or just seemingly, when they win a big game or this or that, he always mentions Eric Bieniemy. So it's interesting to me that around the league, that doesn't hold more weight for some team to just sort of take a chance on him.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I don't necessarily know if it's like if it has anything to do with him being a black coach. I think it's really just he might just not give off the feel that he's right for the job. And because he hasn't really proved himself, outside of being the offensive coordinator under Andy Reid and really who has had a ton of success out of that coaching tree. It's not really a tree that provides a ton of success outside of Doug Peterson. Like that's really, the claim to fame there. So I agree with you. I don't think it's a black coach thing for Eric Bieniemy. I'm just curious. Like it's just interesting that teams choose to go with like retreads. Like I'm sorry. Like I liked Frank Reich in Indianapolis. I think he did a good job. I just don't really get the fit with him in Carolina. It just doesn't really seem to fit for me. We'll see if it works out.
I don't think there is a fit for Carolina, to be quite honest with you.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
That is a strange ownership group and a strange situation. But yeah, I think that is my goal for Bieniemy. I want him to get away, right or wrong. This is pure speculation on my part. I want him to get away from Kansas City. and really prove, because I'm not saying he would be a good or a bad head coach. I just, for me, remember when we were looking before we hired, I say we, like we were part of the fucking search when the Bears were searching for, and they hired Matt Eberflus. Bieniemy was one where I was like, dude, that's not, well, I'm too scorned by Matt Nagy. It had nothing to do with skin color at all, but like, we just got the same guy, or
why we didn't want Doug Peterson.
Yeah, that was very true. Yeah, so I hope he can break that, if that is what the situation is, that he can sort of break that mold and, prove that he can like break away from Andy Reid and have success.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And Frank, there was a couple other things that I wanted to touch on, just because we didn't get to last week. I think the awards like happened after we did our podcast, so I did want to touch on those a little bit. We didn't give any final predictions, which we probably should have, just to clarify at the very end, because I kind of forgot about the awards. If I'm being totally honest with you,
I sort of did too. Yeah.
But we'll go from bottom to top of the list I'm looking for here. Brian Daboll, Coach of the Year. Right or wrong? Do you agree?
No, it was right. Jack, do you remember? I said if it was my choice, it would be Brian Daboll, but I think Sirianni was going to win it just because he had the best record in the NFC. But the guy that I touted got it, so I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think I was more just surprised about the number of votes that Sirianni got. It was like 1 or something like that.
But didn't Daboll win? Daboll won by a pretty sound margin. No, like it wasn't even close.
He did. So it was 16 votes for Brian Daboll, 12 for Kyle Shanahan, 7 for Sean McDermott, which surprised me because Nick Sirianni got 6. Doug Peterson got 5, which I think that's fair.
It's about right.
Andy Reid only got 2. Dan Campbell got 1, and then Kevin O'Connell got 1 as well. Which, I can't really argue with any of them getting votes, which is great. I think everybody in there deserved votes at the very least. Sean McDermott probably would be a little bit lower on my list, given just how talented that team should have been and sort of what their goals should be. They're not like a fun story anymore. Like they're an established team in the NFL. Like they should be aiming for. I don't really get that one. That one doesn't make sense to me. I'm not gonna lie, Frank. I know you thought Daboll should win. I think he should have gotten votes. I don't know about Coach of the Year though. Like, yeah, they had their little run. They had a good run. He took a team that really was not all that good and got them into the playoffs. Like that's great. But like, man, Nick Sirianni did things. Man, it's hard for me not to. I wouldn't have been mad if Shanahan had won it, honestly, with the quarterback issues that he had this year. I mean, it's an impressive job that they did. I don't disagree, but I would have gone a different direction than Daboll.
I would have been okay. Those were the two for me that I thought. So for Sirianni to be that far behind, that was a little strange. But
a little strange.
Yeah, those are my two guys.
Geno Smith won Comeback Player of the Year. Change, either add Most Improved Player or just change the name of it. Because how is he a comeback player? What's he coming back from? What did he come back from?
He's coming back from a bad season. Who else was on the list? Did we get a list for that one?
Let me take a look.
I don't even think there's anyone.
Who else would you? While I'm looking, who would you?
That's what I'm saying. I don't even know who else. Was someone hurt last year that had a solid year? Someone was out of the league last year that had a solid year. Like, I don't even know. Who the fuck do you put on that?
Tom Brady, because he retired and then he came back.
Well, yeah, I guess
a
technically.
month later.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Geno had a better year than him though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who you would really argue.
Yeah, no, I don't know. So, yeah, great fucking choice. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I guess so. See, that's why I'd be okay if it was Most Improved, right? Because then I have zero arguments.
But if Geno Smith lost his quarterback battle to Drew Lock, and Drew Lock just like stunk it up like he would have for 17 games, who would have won this award?
Dude, I don't know, because like you can maybe look at teams that like traded for players like like Matt Ryan. Like if Matt Ryan had a great year, you could maybe make that argument.
No, but no, I'm not saying hypothetically. There are people who could have been set up for it. Who would have won it if Geno Smith didn't have the year he had? I don't even think there's a distant second.
Justin Fields, because he came back from
maybe,
having Matt Nagy
or do you
as
give
his
it to
head
like
coach.
Michael Thomas for having 2 really good games after missing 2 years? Like
Dude.
who is even in this discussion? Like
Dude,
so the reason why I'm asking that though is I feel like this award is inherently like whoever comes back from the biggest fucking injury last year and just suits up for a game is going to get it more times than not. It's never Geno having a good year after having a bad year.
So okay, so I guess this list makes sense. I actually, you know what, I kind of like this. There are a couple names on here that I think work. So you had Geno, 28 votes, by far the most, double the most from the second. Christian McCaffrey with 12. Saquon Barkley at 4. That would probably be a good answer, Saquon.
Wait, pause right there. I have a hard time even doing that because running backs get hurt every fucking year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Brandon Graham had 2. Nick Gates, I don't know who that is. Had 2.
I know we're doing the award thing right now. I'm glad you brought up Brandon Graham. Did you see that piece on Brandon Graham before the Super Bowl about him? Oh, dude. Holy shit. Did I tear up? Listen, I want to sum up the story, but Brandon Graham supports in some capacity, I forget how it was all set up, but this man who has Down syndrome. And the man's a little bit older. I want to say he's in his 30s, 40s. He's older than Brandon Graham. So Brandon Graham says that he's his little brother. He's a little brother of the man with Down syndrome. And it was this whole piece about how he supported him. I hate that I'm calling him the man with Down syndrome. I don't remember his name, but he had to have surgery of some kind. And he was like very down and everything. And like the parents like quite literally credited Brandon Graham with saving their son's life because they were like, he didn't want to get out of bed. He didn't care for like any sort of aftercare or surgery. Like he was just so down. And Brandon Graham would call him, FaceTime him, and like supported him and like did the whole thing. And like Brandon Graham, was sort of doing the story and then like having little interviews. And Brandon Graham was like, I'm just doing what any little brother would do. Like I'm supporting my big brother. And like, it was so dope because he was the man was recovered fully from whatever surgery that it was. And in the preseason, Brandon Graham flew him out and like invited him, and he was like, I'm gonna see you at the Super Bowl, Brandon. I'm gonna see you at the Super Bowl, little brother. And he's like, all right, when we make it there, we got you. And then turns out they got the guy tickets to fly him out there with Brandon Graham. And he kept up with him throughout there. It was an awesome story, dude. It was so good. It was one of those. It's one of those like few things that ESPN still does well with those like covered. They have like a few of the journalists that do those types of pieces. Oh, it was so wonderfully done. It came on like 2 hours before the Super Bowl. I just happened to turn on ESPN and it was right at the beginning of it. It was phenomenal.
Good. Well, that's all. I hope that those stories get promoted a little bit more because I did not see that, but that's a great story. I almost now wish that Brandon Graham had won the award. But I know.
Well, it made me I didn't have a dog in the race, even though we'll get to the games and everything, but like it really made me root for at least Brandon Graham to have a big game. As I saw that, I was like, that dude has a fan in me for life now. Like I love Brandon Graham just to see his attitude and the way he did that. And like, cause he didn't have to do that. And like, he just, not only did he like, take the call to action, but he went above and beyond to like really support someone who was in need. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome, dude. It was great.
Yeah. They're going back to the award stuff. There really wasn't a close second, honestly.
Yeah.
So, I guess Geno makes sense. Defensive and offensive rookie of the year, both Jets, which I don't remember the last time that happened where a team had 2. It's absolutely insane. The defensive rookie of the year voting was really funny because it was 46 votes for Sauce Gardner, 3 for Aiden Hutchinson, and then 1 for Tariq Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. And then the offensive rookie of the year was interesting because Kenneth Walker, the running back for the Seahawks, actually finished with more first place votes than Garrett Wilson did, but he had more second and third place votes, I think, by a good amount. So it was Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker, Brock Purdy, which is fucking insane that he finished third.
Huh, that's interesting.
And then Chris Olave, the Saints wide receiver, finished 4th. So 2 Jets win that. I mean, I can't really argue.
I don't think you could argue that one. I think I don't know. Purdy I struggle with because he only started 5 games, right, in the regular season.
I think it was 6.
6 games. But I mean, he performed. He performed well enough. But that's a good fucking debate between Ken Walker and Garrett Wilson. I think Olave being like 3rd or 4th feels right to me. That whole offense sort of fell off a cliff late. But defense, that's not even. Sauce Gardner is already a top 5 corner in the league. That dude's phenomenal.
And you hear the way people talk about him already.
He's also a really cool guy. He Twitch streams and he's like a really personable dude. Like he hops on like Warzone and stuff. He seems pretty fun.
I hope that stays the case as his career moves forward and doesn't, go down a lot of the holes that some of those people we thought were cool, and like Juju wearing a kilt to the Super Bowl and
but
all that stuff. Kilt, I mean, he made it work. I'm not gonna lie.
I didn't mind the kilt.
I liked it.
I didn't mind the kilt.
Frank, this one might surprise you a little bit here. For the Defensive Player of the Year, the winner was Nick Bosa with 46 votes. The second was Hassan Reddick, who you and I had seen enough of in that Bears-Eagles game. Keenan Williams got 1. Chris Jones got 1. Here's the surprise, though. Micah Parsons got 0. He did not get a single first-place vote. That was surprising to me.
Yeah, I'm surprised, but I'm not shocked, if that makes sense. That Cowboy, he's so good, he should have gotten at least a few votes. But that Cowboys defense really fell off a cliff. I mean, the thing about when we were talking about them in like week 3 or 4 versus like week 12, they became Swiss cheese, man. And even like his production sort of fell off. And I know people act like, oh, we take the full year into consideration. Brock Purdy proves that you don't. He played 6 games and he was a 3rd place. Like the end of the year will always matter when the stakes are there still and playoffs and seeding is at stake. Like that's always going to weigh in more on voters and things. And that makes sense. Even though I still think he's good enough to, get one. If Chris Jones got 1, no disrespect to Chris Jones, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, Micah Parsons should have gotten 1 at least.
But can I say really quick though?
Absolutely.
Micah cannot get his Tucker Carlson interview based on that because Bosa is the one who won the whole thing. So
but he's stole that spot. He could book them together. They could both hang out on Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. I wonder what the angle would be though. You can't say that Micah got canceled.
That's a good point. You're not wrong. Offensive Player of the Year was Justin Jefferson with 35 votes. Pat Mahomes 10, Jalen Hurts 3, Josh Allen 1, Tyreek Hill 1. Not exactly surprised about Justin Jefferson. What I am disappointed in is the fact that Justin Fields did not at least get a first place vote. He should have got at least 1. Come on.
Yeah, well, he got it. Didn't he get an MVP vote?
Going to that, let me take a look if I think it's back the other way. Hold on, give me 1 second. The MVP was, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Not at all shocking there. I think he deserved. It's my only problem with him winning is it's like the LeBron argument, right? It's like or Mike Trout, right? Like they should win realistically every single year based off your definition of most valuable.
Yeah.
But Patrick Mahomes, I mean, come on. Like, he absolutely deserved it, no doubt at all. 48 first-place votes. Jalen Hurts got 1, and Josh Allen got 1. I don't know if Justin Fields got 1. I thought he did.
I saw that somewhere, unless it was some misinformation that came across Elon's Twitter.
Maybe it was... Maybe it was like a second place vote or something. I
saw something. I don't remember the specifics, but I was surprised that he got a vote there and not the Offensive Player of the Year. Not that he should have won it. I'm just saying, like, if there was a vote, it probably should have been Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, Joe Burrow was 4th and Justin Jefferson was 5th. Yeah, I don't know if he got a vote. I don't see any like specific numbers. I don't doubt you. I'm sure.
No, maybe I misunderstood a tweet. I don't know. I could have swore I saw that he got 1 vote. I don't know what place it was or whatever, but I thought I saw that.
He still should have won Offensive Player of the Year. Absolutely, in my opinion.
Won it?
Yeah, won it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know, because Jackie.
Frank, come on, man. He broke a rushing record. He broke a record. He should be up there.
Well, he broke he broke the single season record twice in the year. Didn't he break his own record in the year?
Yeah, he was the best play. He was the best player on the field every single week, just about.
That's
Could
interesting.
you argue that? I mean, you think about like guys like Tyreek Hill, like when they played the Dolphins. I mean, Justin had a better game than he did.
Justin had a
Granted, the team
phenomenal
didn't
game
win.
against the Dolphins.
But every week in and week out, he was the most dangerous player.
Okay,
Maybe I phrase it like that.
most dangerous I
Most
can
dangerous?
concede. Best,
Okay.
I don't know if we're there yet, but yeah,
Okay.
that's a fair statement.
And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is the Hall of Fame stuff. Obviously, Devin Hester not making the Hall of Fame. The class: Darrelle Revis, Joe Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Zach Thomas, Rondé Barber, and then a couple other guys I don't care about, honestly. The 10 people that didn't make it: Hester, Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Patrick Willis, Dwight Freeney, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Derek Woodson, and Albert Lewis. I don't know who either of those guys are, but whatever. No problem with Darrelle Revis, right? No problem with Joe Thomas. DeMarcus Ware over Dwight Freeney and Jared Allen. I don't know if I agree with that one.
Where over Allen I can see, Freeney I cannot. I would flip them.
And then not a single one of those wide receivers, huh? Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt. Come on.
This wasn't Dre's first year, was it? On the ballot, or was it?
I don't know.
Well,
when did he
regardless-
retire? I'll just add 5 years to that. Hold on.
Re-
Continue while I look.
Regardless, I will die on the hill of him being a top 3 receiver from his era. Dre was a dog. He needs to get in. There's no way he doesn't get in. I'm putting him in over who was the Torrey Holt? Who was the other one that you?
Reggie Wayne.
And Reggie Wayne. I think I'm putting him in before I put them in.
Interesting. I obviously have a biased perspective on Reggie Wayne. I think Reggie Wayne is a better player than Andre Johnson was. Andre Johnson had some just fantastic seasons, but overall, I think let's see. So he finished in 2016.
So it's been 8 years.
So this has been 5. This would be his first year of eligibility, I think.
But if he retired in 2016,
2016.
isn't that 7?
No, they go 5. It's 5 years after.
Yeah, 5 years would have been 2021, no?
Yep, you're right. You can do math better than I can. So this would be a second year at the very least. I don't know if it's like...
I don't know, right. The timeline may be... Right.
Sure.
So probably second.
That's wild. Really?
Well, but then... Yeah, Holt and Wayne, this can't be their first or second. They retired before that.
Reggie Wayne this is definitely his second.
Okay. Huh, that's strange.
Yeah, I mean, I know Zach Thomas has been waiting a while. Rondé Barber. I don't get why
Zach Thomas is a Hall of Famer.
Can't we just get the people in who deserve to be in? Like, I don't understand why it has to be like a specific number every single year. I hate that.
Yeah, well, I think that does add to the exclusivity of things, but I kind of agree with Dion's take on it. They are kind of letting some, like, there needs to be an upper room already. Right? I mean, cause like, who were some of the guys?
They can kick a certain Packers quarterback out. Make space.
But wait. Name the top 2 that you said made it in. Name or 3. What was the list again?
Revis, Joe Thomas, DeMarcus Ware.
Are we putting DeMarcus?
Thomas.
Okay. Are we putting DeMarcus Ware in this? We're putting him in the same Hall of Fame as LT.
Apparently.
But so you get what I'm saying? Like, I get what Dion's saying with that. Like, okay, let's say DeMarcus Ware's a Hall of Famer. If he's a Hall of Famer, Lawrence Taylor is a god. Like, let's just make the god of fame. Like, that doesn't make sense.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't
know what I mean?
Marcus Ware should have got in before Dwight Freeney.
This conversation, the only part of this we're in too fucking deep. Devin Hester is a goddamn Hall of Famer, Jack.
Yeah.
There's no excuse against it. Hall of Famers are saying it. People who played against him are saying it. He changed the fucking game. He took a whole... I mean, I've never seen so many punts be kicked out of bounds because you were terrified of Devin Hester. which sort of shows how bad our offense was because we'd start at the 60 and or the 50 and still fucking punt. But
yeah,
regardless,
but see, this is the thing that bothers me. It's like because he's a punt returner, that's held against him for some reason. But like, it's an important part of the game, and not only that, he's literally the best one that's ever done it. If you're gonna put any punt returner in, it's him. It's him. Like,
yeah.
I don't understand. We watched it, and it's not like he was just doing it randomly, too. Like, he literally did it in the Super Bowl. It was the first play of the game.
It was years. I mean,
that's the most iconic. That is one of the most iconic moments in Super Bowl history. Like, let's be very clear. And he did it. I mean, it was just unbelievable, Devin Hester, what he was able to. And like you said, people knew it, and they still kicked to him, and they paid for it almost every single time.
I know.
How is he not a Hall of Famer? I don't get that.
I mean, do you not remember press conferences? Do you not remember coaches explicitly saying, like, they cussed out their kicker or punter when they fucked up and did not kick the ball out of the back of the end zone or out of bounds? Like, there's literal interviews of coaches saying, all week, we told our punter, you don't kick it. I don't give a fuck if you punt it 20 yards. You do not punt the ball to Devin Hester. And they fucking punted the ball to Devin Hester and he took it to the house. Like, there's like a level of, people can look, and the stats are there too, though. Special teams wise, punt wise, kick, we're talking about, those are there, but even take that away. Those types of things matter when you tell the story of someone, their case for football. It's sort of, I liken it to, like, I've worked in the nonprofit world pretty much my whole professional career. And I can get very annoyed sometimes with, everyone wants proof of everything. Like, oh, what are the SEL skills that are taught? Like, are kids improving? And it's like, sure, we can do that, but I also can't jot down, like, the time that a kid told me that, like, this sport saved his life. He would have been on the streets without it. How do I quantify that? Right. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how I feel with like Hester. Like, take away what you can quantify with punt returns and averages. Look at the way people talk about him. It's like Michael Jordan-esque how terrified they were of this guy. And that's not a hyperbole. Find interviews. And if you can't vote for that, you are out of your fucking mind. That's crazy. These are peers. These are coaches that have no reason to speak this highly of him. But they were petrified of him. They had to.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Peyton Manning talking about it. He was like, all week we talked about how we absolutely weren't going to kick it. And I'm sitting on the bench, and all of a sudden we kicked it to him, and I'm looking. I'm like, motherfucker, what was that? Yeah. No, he absolutely, like, should be in the Hall of Fame. Like, and again, what you said is absolutely correct, but even throwing in the quantitative stuff, right? 14 career punt return touchdowns, most all time. 20 career total return touchdowns, most all time. Anytime you have a most all time, I'm sorry, that should be your Hall of Famer. You're a Hall of Famer. You have to be. You absolutely have to be.
Well, you know what is the most interceptions of all time?
I think it's just going to take a little time. Who is the most interceptions of all time?
Your boy who you wanted to kick out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah, he should be out. He should be out. Let's be honest. Him suing people because he doesn't like about what they're saying. Like, get the fuck out of here. He makes the current Packers quarterback look like a normal dude.
Yeah, I mean, the more that Aaron Rodgers talks, he's just he's a modern day hippie is what he is. That's what hippies did in the 70s. They didn't believe in.
I feel like he's trying to be, though. I feel like it's
maybe.
More like
he's
just trying to be.
Trying a little too hard.
Like, I mean, thank God, it's almost Friday. We'll finally have his decision, I'm sure. I'm sure it's going to come out right at Friday, right as he enters his little darkness retreat. He's going to see the sun, and he's going to hear God's voice tell him. Exactly
sign with the Jets.
No. It'll be that commercial. He'll see that commercial. He gets us, or he understands us, or whatever it is. That's
Aaron,
the first thing he's going to
sign with the Jets.
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. Oh, that's a little TikTok highlight waiting to happen right there. Oh, that's good stuff. Well, you better hurry up because Derek Carr is he's trying to make his move. But anyways, Frank, let's talk a little bit about the Super Bowl because it was a damn good game. It was about everything I hoped it would be. A lot of points, a lot of fun. Two really good quarterbacks going at it. Two injured quarterbacks too.
Yep.
The offensive lines were really good. Overall, I thought the refereeing was pretty solid. A couple hiccups here or there. The ending of the game, I know it was a little controversial, but in my opinion, I mean, I thought it was a hold, absolutely. And then you have players saying it was a hold too. I mean, can't really argue that, right? What do you think about the game overall? Did you enjoy it? Did you have a good Super Bowl Sunday?
I share all of your sentiments except for the last portion, but let's get to the whole little bit later. I want to tell you a story, Jack, because it's the grass was fucking horrible. That's unacceptable for a Super Bowl.
Were we watching a Bears game?
That's what it felt like. If Robbie Gould was watching that game, he was getting like flashbacks. Like he has to have PTSD from a slippery playing surface. But after the game hits, game's over with. Phenomenal game again, just like you said, great quarterback play. I think the only other game that comes to mind where two quarterbacks played on each other's level in the Super Bowl was Nick Foles and Tom Brady from a few years. I mean, that's what it felt like. Just two guys lighting it the fuck up. Game is over with. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm writing my notes. What do I want to say? What do I want to remember about the Super Bowl for our episode? And first thing I thought of was the grass is horrible, right? I'm like, man, that sucks. Then the Bears tweet. What they tweeted, my wife told me, they tweeted something like, it's our turn now, or something like that, like saying, like we're on the clock, basically. And I was like, ha ha, fuck yeah. Going in the offseason, that's going to be us next year. Justin Fields is going to have a fucking offensive line. We're going to get that boy some weapons. We're ready to go. Oh, it's our time now. Fucking bozos playing on grass, slipping around like on a goddamn ice rink. Literally, as I'm celebrating this hypothetical, you send me a tweet. This is the same grass that the Chicago Bears play on, Bermuda 55 or whatever it's called. No, it's like, God damn it, man. We can't have anything fucking nice here in the city of Chicago. No, but it was really funny, sort of that being in succession. I'm embellishing a little bit, of course, but listen, I think...
Don't admit that. Just, it happened exactly the way you said it happened.
Exactly the way I said it. The thing that I love, Jack... Both teams were just themselves this game. The Eagles didn't stop being aggressive, going forward on fourth, running forward on third and like medium or long, knowing they were going forward on fourth. They went forward a couple of times, stayed aggressive throughout the game. The Chiefs just I thought the Chiefs made more adjustments in the second half, but they were still, that was their DNA. That was their identity of what they did. I think they leaned more on the run, even when they were down very well in that second half. But then you just saw Jalen Hurts playing to his strength. You saw Pat just do what only Pat can do. That was such a good game, man. And like that to me is like, that's why it's so important. When I thought about you as I was writing these notes, because your whole thing was like, what's going to happen when we're really competing? Are you going to continue to be this conservative with play calling or with punting? And like, look at the teams that are here right now. They're not playing. The days of that are gone. The days of punting on 4th and 1, even though Andy Reid went for a field goal when I thought they should have went for it. So granted, it was like a 40-something yarder. So if he makes it, we're not having this discussion. But yeah, I mean, it was an awesome game, dude. I don't have anything from too much of an, like, I wasn't analyzing it like crazy. The one place where I thought the Eagles went wrong is I think their DC needed to recognize that they weren't getting pressure off a 4-man rush. And he didn't. I don't recall any blitzes being drawn up. And I get you want to stick to who you are and what you do, but I think the grass played a huge role in like teams not getting pressure because what we saw is the Chiefs started really sending blitz. That fourth quarter, Jalen Hurts was under a lot of fucking pressure, and that was not just 4 guys rushing in. They were sending corners. They had a couple safety blitzes. They had a couple linebacker blitzes. Like they were bringing the heat. Granted, the book on Jalen Hurts has been like, blitz is, he's not great against the blitz, but they saved it for when it mattered. And I thought if the Eagles had done the same thing, we might be talking about a different, outcome here.
Yeah, I was going to say when you were touching on, both teams played like themselves. I agree about 90% until you get to the slipping stuff, because I think it really hurt that Eagles pass rush, because we didn't see anything like we had been seeing all the rest throughout the playoffs. And I think it's such a shame that it's even a conversation. Like the fact that that happened on the NFL's biggest stage in the biggest game and the game that mattered the most. And we're talking about the grass potentially neutralizing one of the Eagles' strong suits. I hate that. I think that sucks. But yeah, like you said, I loved the shots that were being taken. Like it's everything I've wanted. And I'm so glad the Bears do not have a statue pocket passer, a traditional guy that'll beat you from the pocket, because Frank, bookmark this game. This is the beginning of the end for the traditional pocket passer. There will always be a place for it in the game. However, like, this is the future. This is what every team is going to want, to have a quarterback that can move, that can, when guys are covered downfield and they run plays deep and it's 3rd and 6, they're going to want their quarterback to be able to recognize that and make the move to get those extra 6 yards. Or tightrope walk like fucking Jalen Hurts did to get a first down on 2nd and 10. Like, just the mobility. And fucking Patrick Mahomes was hurt. He was fucking struggling with that ankle, and yet he still looked like one of the most athletic players on the field. Like, it was incredible stuff. I think the Chiefs wide receivers, I think, did hurt them a little bit, but goddamn, did it not matter. Andy Reid's play calling to get Kadarius Toney open on that short touchdown throw. Oh my God, it was orgasmic. Let's be honest. It was an orgasmic way to watch football, and it's just God. Give me a game like that every single year, as opposed to the fucking 12-6 shit from the. Couldn't stand it.
But you know what, though, Jack? That was such a... I know the final score doesn't show it, but those defenses both swarmed, and they hit hard. There was so many times... I mean, especially like in the first half, the Chiefs were swarming and getting huge hits on the Eagles. And then I look back and think of like the play by what is the other Kelsey brother, where he just pancakes a corner. Jason Kelce. I'm like, man, like the hits in that game. Clean, nothing dirty, but just big hits. Oh, it was great. It was beautiful football to watch.
There was the one at the beginning of the game, the one on the sideline with Snead and Devonta Smith.
Yeah,
that was great.
And, I mean, they came to play. I will say though, Jack, because you brought up two things that I was sort of upset that, and granted, it's a lot of it's Twitter, so who knows, it's people trolling or whatever. But there were like other former athletes and even, I want to say one of them was active. I forgot who exactly they were, but they were saying like Patrick Mahomes is faking his ankle, the limp. Like, can he stop with the fake limp? And I'm like, are you serious? Like, you're a professional athlete, knowing he got diagnosed with a high ankle sprain, and you think he's just faking it for theatrics? That's insane to me.
Yeah, and that doesn't really seem to be Patrick Mahomes. Like, I that's not like in his character.
Well, that was the other thing.
As far as we know.
That was the other thing. Like, he comes across as very genuine to me. There's nothing that comes across as like, I'm like here to like, play things up. He's never come across that way to me. But the second thing, which I think is an overarching thing, you're starting to see, to your point, this is the modern quarterback. Like, pocket passing will always be a thing from quarterbacks, but you want your quarterback to be able to extend plays, to be able to run on third downs and add an element that maybe past quarterbacks could not when we were growing up. But we're starting to, I was starting to see people use this game as confirmation that like, oh, we'll see, like, you still can't run too much. Look at Jalen. He lost. That's why you did. And I'm like, Jalen just put up 35. Granted, I know he gave up 7 of his own. I know that. But if his defense gets a stop or 2 and they win that game, they did what they had to do on offense. There's still 2 sides of the ball here. And it was just such a weird thing, like a weird confirmation bias for people to be like, see, we told you Jalen couldn't do. Where did Jalen come up short? To my next point.
You could argue, Frank. You could argue Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes. Because the Chiefs did score a touchdown off a defensive play, and granted, that was Jalen Hurts fumbling the football. Let's not get it twisted there. I don't
Well,
know.
then the big return by Tony as well helps set them. No,
Helps them
I
out a
wouldn't
little
say
bit.
I wouldn't say he out. They felt very even to me, just given what they had to deal with from the
Which
help that
on
they
its
had.
own is absolutely
Insane.
fucking crazy.
Insane. But then you know what else really bothered me? And I know people were trolling, but it was still annoying because there's nothing to even like. There's nothing there. Oh, noodle arm Hurts couldn't get it to the end zone. Did you not see him slip on? It literally right when he threw it, I like screamed, and it didn't really matter. But I was like, it took the. It was like anticlimactic because I knew he wasn't getting into the end zone because I literally saw him slip in real time, and I like screamed. My wife was next to me, and my kid was, and I was like, he fucking slipped. Like it was so obvious that he slipped when he threw the ball.
Did you not see the bomb that he threw to AJ Brown for the touchdown?
Jackie, speaking of, this is my only other note that I have. I have never fucking seen. First of all, people said that was a bad ball by Hurts. That was a beautifully thrown ball by Hurts. But I think the reason people thought that it was more AJ Brown than anything, because AJ Brown did something I've never fucking seen in my life. He faked out a defender when the ball was already in the air to fuck up the defender's ability to track the ball. Did you see what AJ did? He went inside first, made the corner jump that, and then he went around him to catch the ball. If AJ just goes the direct route to the ball, that was a perfectly thrown ball, it would have been more of like a go up and get it type of thing. That was a phenomenal play by AJ Brown. That was insane.
It goes to our point when we're talking about how important it is for Justin Fields to have true weapons. It's right there. That's proof in the pudding, man. That's Jalen Hurts threw the ball to a spot. He said, "I'm going to throw it here, and I know AJ Brown is going to be able to get the football. I just know because he's that fucking good." We saw it all year, man, with every other top quarterback who has these types of weapons where they can just throw the fuck just throwing the ball to a spot. It doesn't matter if it hits him in the hands because he knows Tyreek Hill is going to be able to make that play. It was absolutely incredible. I was so happy to see. And Frank, I'm going to be honest with you. Jalen Hurts has become one of my favorite players in the league right now.
He's
like
really
the way he played in his first Super Bowl. His first playoff run, I thought he was fantastic. And like I said, 4 total touchdowns, man. Like he was doing it all. He was doing everything.
Yep.
And the way that he talked about the loss afterwards, it wasn't, I'm just using this as an example because it's the first one that popped to mind is, how Cam Newton was after talking about, when the Panthers lost and, he's talking about the loss and Denver is right up behind him or on the other side or however they had that set up. And it was really hard to listen to Cam Newton talk because you could tell how upset he was. But just like the respect that Jalen Hurts seemed to have for the game itself and really just not letting it get him down. Like he was like, this is a learn. And I know you wanted to talk. I don't want to steal your thunder and I'll let you explain in more detail. He reminded me just personality-wise so much of Justin Fields. Like how Justin talked about after every loss this year, just kind of the hope that you're frustrated as a fan, but like he's able to give you something back. Like he's able to explain it's going to be okay. We can choose to learn from this. So big Jalen Hurts fan. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in his first
Agreed.
Super Bowl. I thought, it could have gone poor. It could have. But I thought he played really, really well.
I totally agree. So the last thing that I had was the call at the end. I had a problem with it for a multitude of reasons. With the caveat being, I do think it was a bit of a hold. But just like I told you, the one thing that I always harken back to, the attitude that I have when it comes to these big games, unless you bear hug, literally impede or hit super early like that Saints game from a few years ago in the playoffs, you got to let the boys play. That wasn't nearly enough for me as a ref to call that there. Was it technically a hold? Yes, but the one thing that always stands out was the first Patriots Super Bowl. They knew that they weren't as good as a team as the Rams. They flat out, they were like, look, we got to do everything we have to. We're going to make the refs take this game in control, and we know that they're not because this is the fucking Super Bowl. And the corners got super physical. Granted, rules then were a little bit more lenient in general to physicality between corners and receivers, but I like that. And that to me was not egregious enough in that moment. If you call that in the first quarter and you set that tone, fair fair play. You can't. Unless Bradbury absolutely tackles him in his route, you don't call that. But not only from that standpoint, even if he doesn't tug his jersey a little bit, I don't think that was a catchable ball. I don't think he makes that play. I can't prove it because the ball was still in play. It wasn't thrown out of bounds. It just looked like it was way overthrown to me. And the ultimate thing, what it comes down to is it just made the ending so anticlimactic. Like, it took the steam out of what was such a phenomenal game otherwise, because the argument that is, well, they would have kicked the field goal anyway. First of all, the grass sucked. He missed the field goal earlier in the game because there's no footing. It's not a sure thing, but even if he makes that, there was like a minute and 20 or whatever with one timeout for the Eagles. You're depriving Hurts of a chance to put a stamp on this performance, or the Chiefs to put a stamp on, to make one last stand. Like, it just sucked all of that, nervousness out of it. It was just like, oh, like, this is it. It's going to end like this. And I felt the same exact way last year on that call. Granted, I think it was a phantom call last year with the Bengals when the linebacker held Cooper Kupp. I thought that was just a flat out bad call. Well, I think this one is the correct one. That's really my only angle, is like, it took out that like level of anxiety. Like, you have a good game when a fucking Bears fan who didn't give a shit about this game is I was nervous, Jackie. I'm like, oh shit, like, here it comes, like, it's getting fourth down, and then the flag comes and I'm like, damn it, that's the end of the game right there.
I agree with you there. It was definitely the right call. Again, I do understand where you're coming from in terms of, can you call, because we've had these conversations numerous times on the podcast. Like, when do you make these calls? It's it's obviously under the microscope. I did think he did, like, it definitely was not the word, like, it wasn't
right.
Hassan Reddick pushing Patrick Mahomes to the ground and getting called. Like, could you imagine if it was that? Like, could you imagine?
Jack, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a roughing the quarterback, because it, like, the ball was so overthrown that I was like, surely this isn't like a hold.
Yeah. I agree with you. But that's kind of always sort of been a little up in the air. I think they should it's almost like, to me, it's like double dribbling in the NBA. Like, when do you call it? It happens, you see it, but like, it's not always called. Whereas like the uncatchable ball, like, how many times were we watching the fucking Bears game this year where a guy it would be 18 feet over his head and they'd be like, yep, that's pass interference. It's like, he wasn't going to catch that though. Like, when does that come into play?
Isn't that why they distinguish between the hold and the pass interference?
Yeah, to give it a little bit of
because it doesn't matter how far away it's thrown. Like, you held him on his route. Yeah,
but I agree with you there. I do agree that it did kind of take the wind out of the sails, because you're right. You're like gearing up. You're like, all right, Eagles got 2 minutes to work this out. They got they got a timeout. It's a little bit longer field goal. We'll see if they can. They got plenty of time. Let's see what happens. But then that happens, and you're like looking at the clock, and then you're looking at the timeouts, and you're like, oh, the game's over.
Yeah,
okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty much it. But still, a great game. Just
agreed.
Phenomenal game.
Awesome game. And I think really, Jack, right? The last thing, and you sort of brought it up, that one of the points that I wanted to make, I was watching that game, and I don't think, the NFL is a copycat league. They like to, sort of measure up, and there's measuring stick games and whatnot. I don't think anyone's ever going to be this iteration of the Chiefs. They just are who they are. Like, Pat is just, he brings something to the table that you can't replicate. He just has this it factor about him that I don't think is going to be, duplicated in this era anyway. So I'm looking at both teams, and my always angle is, how far away are we from being them? And I'm watching Jalen Hurts play.
The Eagles, you mean, when you say that?
I just mean any good team. I just mean any good team, generally speaking.
Okay.
And that's why I said the Chiefs. I don't think that product that they bring to the table is like Steph Curry shooting threes. You could try it, but you're going to be Trae Young, right? You're never going to be Steph. But then single it into the Eagles, I'm watching Jalen play. There wasn't a goddamn play that he made that I'm like, my quarterback can't make that play. And that's sort of the way I look at Pat. I'm like, I don't know if anyone else but Pat can make some of these plays. That's why I'm like, that's just like alien level shit. if we ever make it to the Super Bowl against them, let's just hope he makes a couple bad throws. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy what he's able to do. And it weirdly enough, like, gave me just hope, because it's like their play style is so similar. Granted, I think right now at this moment, Jalen is a more consistent passer and Fields is a better runner. But you see this like clear path to build around someone with a very, very similar skill set to Justin Fields. Yeah, man. And I don't think I think it starts in the trenches though, just from a team building perspective. The progression of Justin Fields is always going to be predominantly on Justin Fields. Good coaching in game and plays and playbooks will always be helpful. But we saw a quarterback be in the NFL as a starter for 4 years in Chicago that made zero progression. That's on you at that point. And we've already seen this level from him. So I have faith that he will continue to go. But then I look at what can the rest of the team be. I don't think an AJ Brown is out there this offseason, unfortunately. And I don't think we're in that position to do that. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, you get 2 pass rushers, 3 pass rushers, that shores up the defensive line. I think that makes the secondary really shine. You get an offensive line around him that's able to protect, like Jalen Hurts. I don't see why. And I'm not saying wins, losses. I'm not saying Justin Fields will go 16-1 and make it to the Super Bowl. I'm just saying, like, the product visually. I don't see us building very differently than the Eagles did.
Yeah. There's 2 big spots that 3 really. Because, you look at the weapons that Jalen Hurts has, right? The Bears aren't close to having, Devonta Smith, much less AJ Brown. Like Darnell Mooney would be think of Darnell Mooney in the Eagles offense, where he'd be. He'd be the 4th option because he'd be behind Goddard still. And Cole Kmet isn't even Dallas Goedert level. Like I would put Dallas Goedert as maybe the 3rd, 4th best tight end in the league right now.
Probably, yeah.
Cole Kmet, he had a very good season, a much better season than I anticipated him having. But still not taking over the league as one of the best. And maybe that happens, right? Maybe it does. But there were too many times where I'm like, God damn, this guy is so slow. What the fuck? But so offensive line, I agree with you. We'll see what they do at running back, because there's going to be options. There's going to be options to be had. I don't know exactly how much better someone outside of Saquon Barkley will make that running back room. Like, wide receiver though, they got to figure out something, and whether that's trading back to the 9s to the 10s and drafting a wide receiver there, they have to do something. And signing Juju Smith-Schuster or Jacoby Myers isn't going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. So, yeah, just to your point, yes, there is a clear blueprint for how the Bears should build around Justin Fields. Offensive line, defensive line, draft, whatever. Sign a bunch of guys, great. But you still need that top end talent to really push things to the next level. And the Bears, I don't see the avenue for that to happen this specific offseason. And maybe something crazy fucking happens, I don't know. But that's something that, the blueprint, I don't know how much of it can be copied outside of the offensive line and defensive line, which I think is still very important for them to build.
Yeah, but I totally agree with everything you just said. I look to the other side of the field. What also gives me hope is that there's not killers in that wide receiver room. Kelce adds a totally different dynamic that we don't have, and we probably never will. He's, in my opinion, the greatest tight end of all time. But you're seeing the way Andy Reid is scheming up to get Sky Moore wide open on plays. And I'm watching what both offenses are doing, and I've sort of taken notes throughout the postseason. When we get to these episodes of what do we want to see from this Bears offense next year? What do we want to see from Luke Getsy? And just a quick spoiler alert, I don't some of these aren't crazy drops. It's just pre-snap motions that we don't do at all, or rarely do. And it's little things like that I'd like to see the evolution of this offense take off, because again, outside of Kelce, is a healthy Mooney, Claypool, and whoever. I mean, we'll get maybe like a Jacoby Myers or whoever like third. Is it that different from Sky Moore, Juju, and Kadarius is never healthy? But you know what I mean? Like this talent wise, like you're seeing that scheme and elevated quarterback play that we need Justin to take another step or two, obviously. But
yeah, like, I mean, clearly not, right? Clearly that the Bear that wide receiver group, you could argue the Bears wide receiver group might actually be better than what the Chiefs had to work with in the Super Bowl. However, you are then banking on Luke Getsy being a transcendent play caller,
right?
Or at the very least a great play caller, one of the best in the league,
right? And
I don't think that's something we saw last year. And granted, a lot of that, right, is personnel. Right at the end of the year, he had nothing to work with in that wide receiver room throughout the most of the year. He had nothing.
Simba Webster doesn't do it for you.
He doesn't. He does not. Amir Smith-Marset, he's not exactly getting it done.
Yeah.
But what I will say is we had more question. And granted, Andy Reid was not Andy Reid first year out of the gate, right? He wasn't one of the best play callers of all time. That's not the case. So maybe that can still happen for Luke Getsy, but there's still a ton of question marks in regards to how far away this team is from the. I say there's going to be at least 2 years, right? This year I think should be a marginal improvement. It's a weak division that they play in. Honestly, like the teams ahead of them all have question marks going into next year, and. I could see them, depending on what they do, because right now I don't see them being much better than what they were last year. It depends on what they add, who they draft, things like that. I expect them to improve marginally.
Yep.
I still think it's going to take a couple of years after that because this is not the best free agent class. It's not even the best draft class, really. Things that we've heard from college scouts about this draft class, it's really top heavy, it sounds like. So how much are you really going to be able to build in this specific draft? It's like, questions like that.
I think it's about raising the floor versus elevating the ceiling. Because there's just no depth at all. Last thing for me, and then I know we want to wrap up with Irsay and everything quickly. This is why my philosophy of if you have a young quarterback that or think is your guy, sneaking into the playoffs will never be a bad thing. And that's going to apply to next year too. If we sneak in with 7 or 8 wins, Jalen Hurts got the fucking door knocked off of him. They got their asses kicked last year against the Bucs, and they did it by exploiting his weaknesses. He didn't know how to handle blitz. He didn't know how to handle pressure. Look at what he did this year. He took that and he learned from it and he got even better. Like to me, had he had the Eagles gone, 6 wins, 7 wins, they don't make the playoffs, then you're talking Jalen maybe not, won't be the guy. But until you have that moment, that bright lights moment that you can compare from, granted, I hope as soon as Justin makes it, let's go win a Super Bowl, right? Like that's always going to be the better scenario here. But like realistically speaking, if the flip side of this scenario is that we sneak in, we get the fucking shit kicked out of us by the 49ers, that's going to show me that the following year, can Justin learn from this? Did he realize where the weaknesses that they picked on in the playoffs to, for that to happen? And like clearly Jalen Hurts learned from that and he almost won a Super Bowl because of it.
I agree. And I think that's a lot of things that Justin Fields is going to be able to, I hope Justin Fields watched that Super Bowl. I know he was in Arizona this week, doing Radio Row and things like that. I hope that he takes this, he really paid attention to things Jalen Hurts had done and maybe even talked with him a little bit just to kind of pick his brain. And I hope, I'm looking forward to seeing who Justin Fields is hanging out with this summer because, those are always a big deal, who they throw with, who they're, it's all we heard last year, him and Darnell Mooney.
Jack, Velus Jones bought a fucking jugs machine. I swear to God, if I hear anything else about Darnell Mooney and Velus Jones and their fucking jugs machines and broadcasts and articles, I am going to, I don't know what I'm going to do, Jack. I can't. And then this whole, no, okay, I don't want to get down it. Let's talk about Jim Irsay.
Yeah, well,
it's not the time to rant.
Jim Irsay, there is one other thing we wanted to talk about in regards to the grass being brought up. Quick mention, the Bears did finalize their purchase of the Arlington Park property. So they're, they're looking how to pay for that. It sounds like people like myself will be paying for the Bears stadium because apparently the McCaskies can't foot the bill themselves, which I think is absolute nonsense. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in regards to the Bears getting the stadium. I'd be surprised at this point if it doesn't happen. And then the last thing is I fucking love Jim Irsay. He was, as my time as a Colts fan, I enjoyed him as an owner. This previous couple of years have, done nothing to take that away. He was a little goofy every now and then, but he cared, right? And he still cares. I just don't think he's learned when to just stop talking. Stop talking for a minute.
Yeah.
Because he's talking, he's posting on his social media about how him and the Bears have been doing business for 60 years. It's him at the Lincoln Park Zoo on a black band. Like, I don't understand what's happening there. And he's in a press conference with Shane Steichen. They're introducing him as the head coach, and a question was asked, what's the plan draft wise? And he, surprisingly, he gave a pretty long answer, talking about how we may draft a quarterback, we might trade up, and then Chris Ballard has to jump in and be like, well, we might trade back, and Jim Irsay's laughing, talking about, well, Chris likes his picks, ha ha ha, but hey, that kid from Alabama looks pretty good. Frank, I could not believe that an owner of an NFL team before the draft is giving hints about what they might fucking do. And you can say, no, hold on. This is just games. You're going to look me in the eyes and tell me you think Jim Irsay is thinking 10 steps ahead?
Listen,
that's the whole Saturday.
That's the whole thing, because people like immediately got like, oh, here go the smoke screens. He really wants Will Levis. You don't know Jim Irsay very well if you think that man is throwing smoke screens. My guy was coked out of his mind, excited that the head coaching search was over with, and is ready to give 7 first-round picks to the Chicago Bears.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. As a Bears fan, you gotta love it. You're sitting back. You're like, keep talking, Jim, keep talking, because all he's doing is driving the price up. Because Ryan Poles is going to be looking at that and being like, wow, they really like Bryce Young, huh? Hey, Jim, I know you really like Bryce Young, but listen, Houston wants to trade up. They're offering you 3 first-round picks. What are you going to offer to come and get your guy Bryce Young? I heard you talking about him. That's all that does.
Yep.
And come on, enough with the smoke and mirrors nonsense. There was a rumor that the Bears, from Jason La Canfora, which, good joke, he's never been right about anything.
It's a fucking bozo.
GMs came away that's Ryan Poles planting that story himself, that Justin Fields will be traded. Like, no, come on. Like, teams are going to come and get that number 1 pick. It made me feel a little better that the Colts might actually be that team, because Jim Irsay seemingly wants Bryce Young.
And that's what I told you. Everyone was, and I don't think this was you. I think you just presented the other side of the argument. It's like, oh, only the Panthers and the Titans have inquired about. Yeah, because they're set for next year. They don't like these other teams are waiting on. I mean, the rumor was that they wanted the who were the Colts were in on who they hired, the OC.
Shane Steichen.
But then I also saw Bieniemy as well, which sounded like maybe was their backup plan if he did not take the. How do you pronounce his name? Steichen. If he did not take that job. So yeah, I mean that was never. It's so early right now. I think like the earliest trade for a number 1 with the number 1 pick was was the Jared Goff? Did they trade up to get that, or am I confusing?
No. No. They traded up. They traded back with Washington to get RG3. That's what I was thinking of. I think the Rams had the number 1 pick.
I forgot who it was. But it was like
while you're talking.
It was in March. Like it's things don't have, like, especially with the Super Bowl there, nothing can be official until March 8th anyway. Like it's the
Super Bowl just ended. Like
it
was from Tennessee. So they traded with
Rams.
Tennessee to the Rams. The Rams traded up for Jared Goff.
Yes.
And I think it was like they gave up like the 8th pick or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, it's not what I want. I don't want the.
No, I don't want to fall out of the top 4.
I want the. Well, especially because now the Cardinals hiring a defensive head coach in Jonathan Gannon. They're going to want a pass rusher, so
Well, they
they'll
have
probably
been
draft one of those guys.
I've seen them get Will Anderson in mocks, and I've seen them get Jalen Carter in mocks. It seems like the sentiment is that they're going defensive line.
But kind of what we talked about. I know we're getting into mock draft stuff, so you know what? I'm not even going to comment on that. We'll save it for the couple pods down the road, because Frank and I do want to get into the debate a little bit of Jalen Carter versus Will Anderson, because that's what we're going to be talking about. The Bears are on the clock right now, so we'll see what moves they make. We had to comment on Jim Irsay just being a lovable goof. Like, he's just, bless his heart. He's because
I love that guy.
I was watching it, and every single time he was fucking opening his mouth to talk, Chris Ballard is like looking at him like, hey, can you what are you doing? Like, you need to calm down a little bit. He just gets so excited about football. I love it. So we'll see if that's a potential trade partner for the Bears. I'm hoping it is. But this has been a really good season, Frank. I thought this season, honestly, was a lot better than last year. And that was obviously a big part of that was the Bears were actually watchable for the most part this year. We hope to continue that. And I'm just so excited to see how they build this moving forward, because I agree with you. I think they can be the Eagles. I think they can get to the Super Bowl with this quarterback. We'll just have to see how they build it and if the coaches can do their part. Totally
agree, Jackie. I'm really excited. I'm more so excited for the offseason topics that we're going to be able to touch on and a lot of the content we're going to be able to do. Because like starting next week, we're delving back into like that offseason creativity where we're talking, draft pick stuff. We're talking general prospect rankings for dynasty and things. And maybe we'll get someone else in here for fantasy football going into the year. Like, the offseason becomes a lot less plug and play for content creators, and more like, just creative. So I'm very excited for it.
Me too. And we hope you guys are excited as well. We appreciated you guys listening all season long. We will continue going with the off season, get you ready for the Bears draft, trade, off season, all that good stuff as well. So we appreciate you guys listening. Frank, talk to you next week, man. This has been the Bear With Us podcast.
Later, Jackie. Later, everybody.
Everybody love everybody.